A harrowing 24 hours for a family is over. A 4-year-old chocolate lab taken during a carjacking yesterday will be reunited with its owners today. Good afternoon. It's a major sigh of relief for the family of that missing pup named Roxy.
Police confirming today the dog has been tracked down, along with the suspect, who is now in police custody. CTV Sean Leithong is live with the very latest. A huge sigh of relief, Sean.
It certainly is, Nathan and Michelle. I'm standing in the area of Hurontario in Mayfield where the car was located. It was a Jeep Grand Cherokee about 11 o'clock last night. But we take this back to yesterday morning. Josh Miller was dropping off his kids at a school near Bloor in the East Mall in Etobicoke. It was at that time, after the kids were dropped off, that he was actually carjacked, the suspect telling him to get out of the car or he was going to hurt the children in the school. Miller, of course, getting out of the car and the suspect driving away. That's when Miller realized that their chocolate lab, Roxy, the 4-year-old dog, was inside the car. Now, after an extensive search for 24 hours last night, police recovered the vehicle here in North Brampton. And then it was some time before Toronto police say they got a tip that Roxy, the dog, and the suspect were located at a residence in Brampton. Now, Toronto police then contacted Peel Police. Peel Police visited the residence where they say they apprehended the suspect and they brought the dog in as well. Now, what's going on is that the dog is being reunited with the family. I briefly talked to Josh Miller on the phone this morning, who was saying he was waiting for a phone call. Obviously, the feelings for them is that it must be a huge sigh of relief given the fact that they had lost the car, but more importantly, the family's dog for a little while. Miller had said yesterday that he was relieved that none of the children were hurt or anything like that. But there is, of course, that fear of what would happen. So it is a best case scenario, given a terrible situation yesterday, that the dog has been recovered. The dog is healthy and about to be reunited with his family. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leithong. Nathan and Michelle, send it back to you.
All right, good to hear. Thank you, Sean. Well, a man's fighting for his life in hospital after being struck by a vehicle in Mississauga last night. It happened shortly before 6:30 near Rathburn Road and Confederation Parkway. Police say the man who was struck was elderly but did not provide an exact age. The driver involved remained at the scene. The circumstances leading up to the incident remain under investigation.
One person has been taken to hospital after a crash in Brampton last night. This single vehicle crash occurred at Coleraine Drive and Countryside Drive just after 10:30 p.m. Video from the scene shows a flatbed tractor trailer with a load tipped on its side in a ditch. There's no word on the extent of the person's injuries.
A woman was arrested after causing disturbances at 2 stores on Wilson near Dufferin. Officers were responding to the one store at around 6:30 yesterday evening and found Toronto fire crews treating multiple people for minor injuries. The suspect had already left the scene, but a second disturbance was reported at a nearby restaurant and an arrest was made. Police have not said whether charges will be laid.
Still ahead on CTV News, the Premier is responding to U.S. tariff threats with threats of his own. Ford faced questions today after he said he would cut off energy to the United States. We'll have details on that a little later in the newscast. But first, a heads up, if you live or commute north of the GTA, Environment Canada has issued several warnings and watches for snow squalls, and in some areas, the conditions could be especially treacherous. A blizzard warning is in effect for Owen Sound, Blue Mountains, and Grey County, where up to 80 centimeters of snow is expected with strong winds and blowing that snow around. Visibility is expected to be near zero. Snow squall warnings are also in effect for several areas, including Barrie, Orangeville, Bracebridge, and Gravenhurst. Those areas could also get up to 80 centimeters of snow, and they already have snow. A snow squall watch is also in effect for the Innisfil area.
We got more news in a moment, but first, here's a look at the weather right now, the city. Definitely a day to bundle up and wear your heavier winter coat. There's also a wind chill, making things feeling even chillier. But at least we have some sunshine and not nearly the amount of snow they're getting up north. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Hey, Jess.
Hey, it really is a completely different story for us here. Yes, it is cold, but we have the sunshine here and nearly no snow on the ground after it mostly melted with all the rain. But those communities that are along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, I was looking at a few different live cameras. There is a ton of snow. It is really windy out there, and they're still getting hammered by that lake effect snow machine. Here in the city, it is cold, it is windy, but we're staying relatively clear. The chance of maybe a few light flurries this afternoon. Those areas in those warning kind of regions, it is significant. So if you don't have to go outside or drive anymore, at least until the midpoint of our day tomorrow, recommended you just stay off the roads if you can. We're looking at those winds really strong here. So we don't have the snow, but we have the wind. The same system that's affecting those communities, it's affecting us more in the way of wind. We're looking at winds in excess of 70 kilometers an hour, adding a wicked wind chill. Right now, -6. It feels like -16. It's closer to feel like -20 in some areas across southern Ontario, and it doesn't get any warmer this afternoon. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. We'll talk about the snow and the wind and all of it. But right now, I'll send things back over to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Jess. The Premier is responding to U.S. tariff threats with threats of his own.
Doug Ford says he would consider cutting off power to northern U.S. states if Donald Trump follows through on his economic plans. CTV's News Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has the details.
The Premier not backing off an energy threat should Canada get locked into a trade war with the U.S. Doug Ford says it would be a last resort, but Ontario is prepared to turn off the power it supplies to 1.5 million American homes. That's if Donald Trump follows through on 25% tariffs on Canadian goods going into the States. The feds have come up with a plan to add more resources and technology at the border, trying to limit the movement of migrants and drugs. But Ford says Canada needs to show the U.S. it has tools in its tool belt ready to reach for.
If they put on tariffs, it's going to be unaffordable for Americans to buy electricity. Just like if they put tariffs on the 4.3 million barrels of oil that's Alberta shipping down to the U.S. If you put 25%, that increases every barrel of oil by, every gallon of gasoline by $1. So I don't think that President-elect Trump wants that to happen.
The federal government's putting together a list of goods it could put tariffs on to retaliate. How is all of this going over in the U.S.? Well, Ford is speaking with governors from New York and Michigan later today. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The Prime Minister shared a photo of himself on last night's call, joined by the Deputy PM and Public Safety Minister. He commented, "We just spoke with premiers about the Canada-U.S. relationship. Team Canada's working together to defend what matters most to Canadians: good jobs, a secure border, and a strong partnership with the United States."
Also new from Queen's Park today, the province is introducing measures it says are meant to end homeless encampments. The Premier was joined by municipal leaders to introduce the proposed legislation. It will include stronger trespass laws and fines or jail time for illegal drug use in public. The government also says it's considering allowing the courts to provide rehabilitation as an alternative to incarceration for minor or nonviolent drug crimes.
I want to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to be able to save people's lives. If that includes compassionate intervention, I think that it's worth a conversation. We're having conversations across this country in regards to compassionate intervention. If this is about saving people's lives, why don't we put everything on the table and say, what are we going to do to be able to save these people's lives? I find it, and my colleagues find it, unacceptable that people are in tents that can either freeze to death or burn to death. Families expect us to do more, and we're committed to do more. That's what today is.
It's unclear when these measures could take effect, as the Ontario legislature set to rise on Thursday for its winter break.
Meantime, Hamilton police made a surprising find at an encampment. They found a series of tunnels. Police found the man-made holes in tunnels in Gage Park Tuesday. They allowed extension cords and other electrical wiring to connect to multiple tents. There was also a generator in another hole which connected to a City of Hamilton light pole. Police say one man is responsible for the tunnels. He is facing charges of mischief, drug possession, and failure to comply with a probation order. Hamilton's mayor says the city is taking a proactive approach on encampments, including increasing shelter capacity.
We're putting together a separate outdoor temporary shelter site, which will be up and running fairly shortly to try to move people out of encampments and into a better space. But we're also expanding significantly our shelter beds, and much of that work has already been done. But by the end of December, there will be over 300 new spaces in the shelter system.
All tents in the area have been cleared out to allow the city to assess and repair the damage.
Well, 14 days away from Christmas, but only a few days away from receiving an early present. The Trudeau government's GST holiday kicks off this Saturday, removing the tax from a list of items. But as CTV's Sarah Plowman reports, it's creating extra work for some businesses.
Saturday will kick off 2 months of tax relief on items like chips, baked goods, and some toys, touted by the Trudeau government as a tax holiday in time for the holidays and criticized by the Conservatives as a tax trick.
I appreciate, we all do, but if it was just more than 2 months.
Wonder if it will be hard to go back.
The GST relief isn't a blanket tax break. It applies to restaurant meals, some snacks, beer, wine, and cider, children's clothing, some toys and books. Busy businesses have a new must-do on their to-do list, sort through what gets taxed and what does not.
It'll be some time with spreadsheets, but, you know, it's part of the gig, right? Anything to boost the holiday spending is great in my books.
Not everyone's as optimistic. Yes, they want their customers to get the break, but it's not a simple process.
The way we've designed our store is in sections.
Each section has a tax code.
I have 400 plus tax codes, and I need to change them all one at a time.
Some worry about making an error.
The list is quite generic, and so we are being put in the position of having to make tax decisions that could implicate us if we make mistakes.
In Ontario and Atlantic Canada, federal and provincial sales tax blend into a harmonized sales tax. In those places, the entire HST will be waived, which means more relief, but at a cost to provinces if they don't ask for compensation. Ontario is opting not to go that route at a cost of nearly $1 billion. This will cost New Brunswick $70 million. And while Premier Holt has signaled she doesn't wish to stand in the way of any affordability relief for New Brunswickers, I'm told discussions are ongoing with Ottawa to see how this province could be reimbursed. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Lincoln, New Brunswick.
The federal government is asking an Ontario court to extend its deadline to resolve a years-long challenge over citizenship rights. Back in 2009, the then Conservative government changed the law so Canadians who were born abroad as citizens couldn't pass those rights down a further generation if that child is also born outside Canada. But last year, the Ontario Superior Court of Justice found the law was unconstitutional. The Liberals introduced legislation to grant citizenship to the so-called lost Canadians, but it's still making its way through Parliament. A government court filing suggests an unknowable number of people could automatically become citizens next week if the court doesn't extend its deadline to address the issue to March.
Time magazine has named Donald Trump as 2024 Person of the Year. The announcement was officially shared this morning when Trump also rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. Time makes their pick based on who had the biggest impact on the world over the previous 12 months. This will be the second time Trump is named Time's Person of the Year. The first was in 2016 after his first election win. The publication says it was recognizing Trump's deep impact on American politics in the wake of his victory in November.
In 2016, Donald Trump ushered in a new way of doing politics, a new brash, and forceful way. And he promised in his campaign to reshape the Republican Party. Well, now in 2024, we've seen that he has reshaped the Republican Party, and he's populated the party with people who are loyal to him and who have followed his unique brand of populism. And so yeah, we picked him because he's really reshaped American politics, and his campaign reshaped the American electorate.
Other names on this year's shortlist include Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Kamala Harris, and Elon Musk. Last year's pick was Taylor Swift. Also today, U.S. President Joe Biden commuted the sentences of nearly 1,500 Americans. Biden also handed out 39 presidential pardons in the biggest single day of clemency acts by a U.S. president in history. In announcing the pardons, Biden said those pardons had shown successful rehabilitation for their nonviolent crimes. No names have been announced, but this follows Biden's decision earlier this month to pardon his son Hunter on firearms convictions, which the president argued were politically motivated.
New York police revealed damning new forensic evidence in their murder case against Luigi Mangione. Two major breakthroughs, fingerprints and shell casings, all point toward the suspect.
After a days-long manhunt that riveted America and the world, Mangione is beyond an alleged assassin, but he is a social media star for some. CTV's Joy Malbin has more from Washington.
Luigi Mangione, who once lived a life of privilege and wealth, alone now in a Pennsylvania jail cell. Denied bail and fighting extradition back to New York, where Mangione is charged with the murder of Brian Thompson, a healthcare executive and father of two.
We've seen no evidence. That's one of the many reasons why we're challenging the extradition at this point.
Police say they have an overwhelming amount of evidence now tying the ghost gun found on Mangione directly to the crime scene.
We were able to match that gun to the 3 shell casings that we found in Midtown at the scene of the homicide.
Also matching Mangione's fingerprints to those found on a water bottle and energy bar discarded near the murder. It's damning evidence, and police found a notebook when he was arrested, writings about health care and corporate greed. One passage reads, "What do? You whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence." Police wonder if Mangione's health struggles point to a motive, posting about sciatica, back pain, and brain fog online. He became reclusive. Family and friends hadn't heard from him for months.
So I just remember him as always being a kind, well-liked person. I just can't imagine what drove him to this.
Since his arrest, an outpouring of support online. And police are concerned about copycats after wanted posters of CEOs were posted outside of New York Stock Exchange.
Joy Malvin, CTV News, Washington.
And last week's killing of Brian Thompson has prompted some companies to ramp up security for their own executives. Some are closing headquarters, while others are scrubbing their websites of executives' photos. Armed security details have also increased for some key business leaders. One company in Minnesota has temporarily closed its offices out of an abundance of caution.
Canada Post will not temporarily lay off workers after settling a complaint filed by the union. The resolution comes as the strike drags on to nearly 4 weeks.
Some of us are going to lose our homes. Some of us are struggling for our Christmas. Some of us are struggling to put food on the table.
The two sides remain far apart, with Canada Post calling the union's offer unaffordable and unsustainable. The Crown Corporation claims the proposals would cost $3 billion over 4 years. The union says it's already climbed down from its 4-year 24% pay hike demand to 19%. And CTV's Scott Hurst is tracking all this and has more details. So, Scott, how are small businesses handling all of this?
Nathan, we've been hearing for weeks from small businesses about how they're having to pick up extra costs just to get their products to customers who order them and use other shippers other than Canada Post, since it is not an option right now. Now we're hearing from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business saying many small businesses it represents are effectively writing off the Christmas season, thinking that Canada Post will not be any help when it comes to getting anything out to Canadians for the holidays, because according to the CFIB, there's no way Canada Post could possibly get through its backlog or catch up, picking up and delivering any new orders before Christmas, thinking that there's already a backlog that would take weeks. So if anything that is ordered now, there's no chance anyway, according to the CFIB. Here's more from Dan Kelly from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business on the concerns from small businesses across the country.
They would have weeks and weeks of backlog to get through. I suspect before they clear out the backlog, we're talking a month, maybe 2, to restart the system and get everything going. And so for retailers look desperate for a solution to get goods to their end consumer before the holidays, that ain't happening with Canada Post.
So Nathan, at this time, this appears to be yet another blow for small businesses from coast to coast in this country who rely on this season for so much of their bottom line to really make ends meet. The holiday shopping season from about Black Friday to Christmas for many of these businesses really is make or break for them. And so without Canada Post, so many are having to rely on these other shippers, which comes at more of a cost for the businesses. And Nathan, the farther this drags on, ultimately that cost could be passed on to the consumers.
So are we any closer to a deal with all this?
Nathan, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it appears the two sides remain quite far apart on some of the key demands that are keeping them from trying to get a deal at the bargaining table. And so, of course, we've heard about wage increases and more job protection for workers, and the proposal and ways how to staff a proposed expansion into weekend delivery. And we've been seeing the two parties releasing statements over the past couple of days criticizing each other's proposals. And that is kind of where we sit now, Nathan, 4 weeks into this, and we're hearing more and more about the impact on Canadians far and wide. We've recently been hearing from rural and remote First Nations saying that this is also becoming a serious health concern. The Assembly of First Nations saying the strike is delaying some much-needed supplies of medicine and other necessities to some remote and rural First Nations and those who desperately need these supplies. So, of course, it's a huge inconvenience for businesses, for Canadians, but as we're hearing from some First Nations, particularly some rural and remote First Nations, Nathan, this is becoming a health and safety concern as well. So 4 weeks into the strike, and it appears the two sides remain still far apart on some of the key demands here.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst with the latest on the Postal strike. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Well, as this year comes to a close, Nikon has announced the winner of its Best Comedy Wildlife Photo of 2024. Milko Marchetti got the top honor for this year's photograph of a red squirrel in Italy, seemingly stuck in an unfortunate position. We also should let you know the squirrel did manage to make it out of that hole. Other notables were a joyful-looking shot of a praying mantis and another showing what seemed to be a fish flying after a bald eagle. How do you like that? Organizers say they received more than 9,000 entries this year, the most in the competition's 10-year history. Jess.
Some pretty cool pictures, and you'll want to be inside looking at photos today because it is cold and it is very windy. We are looking at a below seasonal day and then some from start to finish, so layer up if you do have to spend any time outside. We're looking this afternoon at about -4, feeling closer to -12, even -14 when you factor in those westerly winds in excess of 70 kilometers an hour. The wind does not let up as we head into this evening, and the wind chill tonight, wicked. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast and let you know when we're returning to a more seasonal daytime high. All those details after the break.
A Toronto police officer who pleaded guilty to attempted insurance fraud is back in court today.
Sentencing submissions are happening this afternoon for Constable Ronald Joseph, who was arrested back in 2020. CTV's Mike Walker has more from the courthouse.
Constable Ronald Joseph likely won't spend any time behind bars, but today lawyers are arguing what his sentence should be. Joseph recently pleaded guilty to mischief and 3 counts for attempting to defraud insurance companies, avoiding a trial that was just getting underway. This stems from several fraudulent insurance claims Joseph made, including a bogus police report for a stolen vehicle, as well as staged collisions. One fake incident including a vehicle from Joseph's rental company that the Crown highlighted this morning. Joseph was first charged by police following a lengthy investigation connected to the troubled tow truck industry. The Crown is calling for a total sentence of 2 years less a day. That includes 12 months house arrest with GPS tracking, as well as 6 months curfew with GPS tracking. Crown attorney Mitchell Flagg submitting Joseph was at the center and heart of the ongoing scheme that involved a great deal of planning and deliberation, recruiting associates he barely knew, including tow truck drivers, to rip off insurance companies with the staged incidents and profiting from the claims. The Crown told the judge Joseph would use his status as a police officer to mislead police about the fake stolen vehicle incident, arguing it brought dishonor to the force and public perception of police. Other co-accused in this case have previously pleaded guilty. The defense will be making its sentencing submissions this afternoon. Joseph, who is currently suspended from the force, will be sentenced at another date, which is yet to be determined. Mike Walker, CTV News.
Well, nature has flipped a switch. It was mild yesterday. Now it is oh so cold. And then you add the wind. I mean, it's a big change in the air today.
Yeah, it really does hit you, Sam. There's really no excuse to not wear the big, heavy winter coat because the stylish coat won't exactly work today.
It is function over fashion on a day like this. You have to think about the way that this wind hits, and because it is so strong, you really have to layer up. Exposed skin, you can get frostbite very quickly when it gets this cold outside. And we've gone from such a warm start to the week to this absolute opposite end. But we saw that cold front come through, and we're looking at a really gusty westerly wind carrying us right through to the end of the day. So this doesn't get any better. But at least there's sunshine, so hopefully kind of a trade-off. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. Now, it is cold out there, but if you're layered up properly, getting out for a skate is not the worst. Again, you have the sunshine out there, but you have to have on the right layers. We are looking at wind chill values in that mid kind of teen range, mid-minus teen range to the mid-minus 20s in some parts of Ontario as we head throughout the day today. And this is kind of, we're getting to the warmest point of the day. Into this evening, it will be absolutely freezing. Right now we're at -6. It feels like -15 when you factor in the wind chill. Feels like -18 through Windsor. Anywhere kind of north of Timmins, you're feeling like -22 to -34. It is freezing out there. So just think if you work outside, for example, you layer up accordingly because exposed skin can freeze very quickly. Frostbite can happen really fast. Into this afternoon, we'll get to a daytime high around -4. We should be at +2 for this time of year, but it will feel closer to -12, and everybody in that double-digit wind chill range. Now, the bulk of the snow activity, again, is staying along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, but it doesn't mean we won't still see some of that because the winds are that strong. It's carrying all that snow right across southern Ontario. Again, the bulk of the really heavy snow where we have those warnings in place, Owen Sound, Goderich, Kitchener, Barrie, Muskoka, Peterborough, they're getting the brunt of it as we head throughout the day today and into the day tomorrow. But because that trough is going to extend all the way across southern Ontario, it pulls that snow all the way across. But the heavier stuff, again, nowhere near us here in the GTA, but we could see some light flurries this afternoon. Heading into that midpoint of our afternoon, again, the bulk of it is north of the downtown core. You just get the wind downtown. As we head into this evening, we're not looking at much in the way of any cloud cover, and another really sunny day as we head into our Friday. But another really cold one. So keep that in mind. The sunshine does not equate to warmth this time of year. As we head in towards the early part of our afternoon, early evening, it's a nice clear night ahead of us. Saturday starting off with lots of sunshine out there. It's really not a bad start to the weekend. If you are kind of getting into that holiday season, you're traveling a little bit, Saturday's probably a pretty decent one to get some of that activity done. But it is, again, very cold. Tonight, the wind chill values are a little closer to -18, -20 for us here in the city and across the GTA. So it is frigid. Into the day tomorrow, not much warmer, but we still have that sunshine out there. Saturday, we get to the freezing mark. So yes, it is still cold and we're still below seasonal, but we're significantly warmer than today and our Friday. In towards your Sunday, we start to see another system come through, but because it is that much warmer, it falls as rain. And we hold on above seasonal right through to the middle of next week. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Jess. Well, as we touched on, Environment Canada has issued a snow squall warning for the Blue Mountains. The resort town is already looking nicely covered this afternoon, but plenty more snow is expected with strong wind blowing all that snow around. For more on this, we're snowy forecast and the fun that it will allow for. I'm joined by Tara Lovell, Manager of Public Relations at Blue Mountain Resort. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you can hear us with all the wind. It sounds windy up there. Snow.
Yeah, it is.
It is? You know, it's funny. Last year, I was just thinking snow was in short supply. This year, what a different story, and very early on in the season. Is this an early Christmas present?
You know, anytime we see snow in the forecast, everyone here considers it a gift from Mother Nature. So we're very happy to see that here. Along with the natural snowfall that's forecast and that we've seen, those -5, -7 temperatures that we're having right now and look like they're going to be there for the next few hours and overnight mean that we can have all these snow guns running behind us, and that's even better.
Now when there's not enough snow for skiing, it certainly has to be made. But when you get a ton and several doses like you have up there, I would imagine there's some work involved to make sure all the runs are good to go.
Absolutely. You know, just because the hills are white doesn't mean that they're in the exact shape we want them to be skiing or snowboarding on them. Our operators are working 24 hours a day right now, watching the weather, reacting to the weather, getting the snow guns running, but also grooming the hills you see behind me. So once the snow actually lands, we have to make sure that it's packed down, it's safe, and it's a great experience for skiers and snowboarders.
So, Tara, what do you anticipate the conditions will be this weekend and in the lead up to Christmas? Are we talking all the runs open?
I'm excited for this weekend. With these consistent cold temperatures, we're going to be able to open up more of these lifts. Right now we have Silver Bullet open, we have our beginner areas open, but again, with the snow guns running, that means we can get those lifts open and quickly. going into the holiday season, we're really optimistic to be able to ski end to end.
And what does this mean for the resort and for your team there? It must be real good to have, you know, a classic white Christmas situation.
Going into the fall, I think we talked to every meteorologist we could find to try to get the forecast going into winter. And hearing that it's going to be a La Nina winter with great natural snowfall was definitely something that makes us all optimistic going into the season. We get excited. And you can see how busy it is behind me. It's the middle of the day, midweek. And people who want to ski, want to snowboard, want to get on the hills are here because not only are our team excited, but our skiers are excited too.
I'm looking behind you. I'm seeing all these folks. I'm thinking, are they working from home today? Have they started their vacation early? What has the response been from guests?
Excitement and eagerness. We had our opening day last weekend. The lifts typically start running at 9. Before 8:30, we had people with their skis ready to go, waiting at the lift. They just keen. And I think after the last 2 seasons, our skiers and snowboarders, you know, they've been committed to the sport. And this will be the winter that pays off for that.
That's great to hear. For folks who maybe haven't been up that way in a while, what do you think are some of the highlights for people coming north? What can they expect?
Well, along with the great conditions that we're going to have, there's always something going on in the village here at Blue. When we talk about skiing in Canada, we try to make sure it's the whole experience of skiing. So it's not just getting on the hill. It's not just learning a new sport outside. It's also all the après, getting outside with your friends and family, and making sure that your winter is active and engaged.
Oh, wow. You've got me longing for après. Tara Lovell, thank you so much. She's the manager of public relations at Blue Mountain Resort. Happy skiing and snowboarding.
We'll see you on the slope.
Take care.
Coming up, science class got hands-on for a group of high school students getting a chance to witness surgery being performed in person. Details after the break. It was a real-life science lesson for a group of grade 10 students.
They were invited to witness surgery being performed in person. It was all part of an effort to promote early cancer detection. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan has the details.
These are the faces of grade 10 students watching surgery live, a section of a woman's colon being removed after cancer was found. And it was an eye-opening experience for most of the kids from West Park Collegiate.
Yeah, it was mostly the fat that looked kind of like microwave cheddar cheese. I didn't like the part where they were like cutting into the stomach because it was kind of graphic, but overall it was like pretty cool.
So my science sir, Mr. Johnson, have been teaching me about the digestive system. So it helped me to understand the surgery more well and more clearer.
The surgery was performed by colorectal specialist Dr. Shadi Ashmala and the team at Sunnybrook Health Sciences.
She had a screening colonoscopy. They found this cancer, biopsy proven to be cancer. We do CAT scans. We make sure it hasn't spread anywhere. And then the surgery itself is basically we go in laparoscopically, just with the tiny incisions, and we remove that first part of the colon.
When Sunnybrook last invited students to witness colorectal surgery 7 years ago, the idea was to introduce young people to medical science and the latest technology. But with cancer research developing over the past several years, the emphasis this time was a little different.
We now know that colorectal cancer is happening in younger and younger patients, and the data is really clear.
Dr. Ashmala wants the younger generation to understand how important early detection can be and that treatment can result in a return to normal life.
We're more obese, we move less, we stress more, we have higher, the way we eat, what we eat has changed and changed in a negative way. So I think there's a lot of impact.
And a first-hand look at how cancer surgery works could encourage these students to take better care of their health, recognize the signs of colorectal cancer, and maybe even inspire a few of their career choices. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
The Raptors are in Miami tonight, but they'll be without Scotty Barnes. Toronto's all-star forward will be out for a while after spraining his ankle earlier this week. It happened in a game against the New York Knicks. The team says the injury will be re-evaluated next week. The Raptors are trying to end a 3-game losing streak when they take on the Heat tonight.
The Leafs are back in action tonight after stealing 2 points in New Jersey on Tuesday.
In comes Austin Matthews. He can win it. Scores! Austin Matthews, breakaway goal!
Austin Matthews scoring in overtime to lift the Leafs past the Devils 2-1, despite being wildly outshot. Tonight, the Leafs host the Anaheim Ducks, who are last place in the Pacific Division and have lost 4 in a row. Puck drop at Scotiabank Arena is set for 7.
6-time Super Bowl winner Bill Belichick has a new coaching job, but not in the NFL. The 72-year-old has signed a 5-year deal with the University of North Carolina. He replaces Mac Brown, who was the school's winningest coach. Belichick won 6 titles in his 24-year run as head coach of the New England Patriots. Most of that success came with legendary quarterback Tom Brady, who posted, "Congrats, coach. The Tar Heel way is about to become a thing."
FIFA has announced Saudi Arabia will host the World Cup in 2034, and already human rights groups are raising concerns. The groups worry Saudi Arabia will use the tournament to shed its poor human rights reputation. The country has been criticized for its treatment of minority groups and migrant workers and freedom of speech. Saudi Arabia has grand plans for the World Cup that include building or renovating 11 stadiums and 185,000 hotel rooms. The next World Cup is in 2026. Hosted by Canada, the U.S., and Mexico.
Science has shown that simply smiling can help improve your mood. CTV's Andrew Johnson introduces you to a guy who puts it into practice every day at work and tries to share his joy with others.
Has anybody seen this guy before? He is my favorite.
This guy is Terrence Pitts.
I love this job so much that I never ever want to stay home.
So for 6 years, rain or shine, sluggish or sick, Terrence hasn't missed a day at his Surrey, BC crosswalk.
He's the first face that they see when they come to school in the morning.
His smiling face is just the start.
2 people coming. Yep, got this one coming up right now.
Of a routine.
See you later.
That for Terrence,
sometimes I'll do a little dance number sometimes.
never gets old.
The kids, just everyone in general, it just brightens my day. I just love helping out, making a smile, just making a difference pretty much every day.
He admits some people find the whole thing a bit much, but his supporters speak for themselves.
A wonderful job. Thank you very much. You have a very good day, sir. Hey.
I get a lot of correspondence from the community letting us know what a joy he is.
A community Terrence does find is sometimes in too much of a hurry.
You're going to encounter a few speeders too around this area. Like this one right here. Slow down, please.
But twice a week, Monday to Friday, there isn't any place he'd rather be.
Just want to make sure everybody's happy. That's my goal in life. Just make sure there's people smiling. Hello.
In this crosswalk, more often than not, they are.
Nice day so far, eh?
Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Surrey, BC.
He's got us smiling. Still to come, U.S. and Canadian stocks were down this morning. We'll tell you why and get all your business headlines when we return. U.S. and Canadian stocks slipped in early trading.
Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there, here are your business headlines. Stocks were down this morning after U.S. tech giant Adobe disappointed investors. Adobe shares lost 10% after the company provided a lackluster forecast. Economic worries also weighed on investors. The Wall Street Journal says markets were shaken by a surprise jumbo interest rate cut by the Swiss National Bank, which reduced its main interest rate to 0.5%. Shares in Empire Company, parent of the Sobeys grocery chain, jumped 7%. Sales and profit in the company's latest quarter beat expectations. Management spoke of a gradually improving consumer environment, but TD analyst Michael Van Elst, who rates the stock at hold, said, quote, "This goes contrary to what most other retailers are saying." And speaking of TD, shares in that bank rose 1%, but they're still down about 11% in 2024 after the bank incurred massive penalties in the US over lax controls over money laundering. Jefferies analyst John Aiken upgraded the stock to buy, saying the transition to a new CEO in April, quote, "will be a clean slate." That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg.
An agreement has been reached that will see the Body Shop Canada sold to an equity company led by the founder of the Yogenfru's frozen yogurt chain. The cosmetics company says an agreement was signed December 6th that will see it sell all of its assets to an affiliate of Saruya Private Equity, Inc. The price includes cash and the assumption of certain liabilities. In July, an Ontario judge authorized the sale of the Body Shop Canada after its parent company stripped it of its cash and pushed it into debt.
It's always wise to keep track of your finances carefully, and that includes your investments and retirement funds.
If you receive money from your RRSP or GIC benefits, there are limitations on when you need to cash out your money. CTV's Pat Foran has more.
I was looking for a needle in a haystack.
Lyndon Griffiths of Scarborough says his mother passed away 24 years ago. He and his brother were executors for her will, but at the time he missed an important document.
There was a GIC that was left for me. My mother never told me about it.
Griffiths says it was 2 years ago when he discovered the GIC in his mother's will, worth more than $8,600. But when he went to his bank, TD, he was told there was no record of it.
I felt distraught because I know I did not get the GIC.
That check was dated 2002, and I know that time was in Houston, U.S.
Nancy Lau of Markham says she was going through old documents and found an uncashed RRSP check for just over $2,600. She was going to school in Texas at the time. Lau took the 22-year-old check to her bank, RBC, but was also told too much time had passed.
I feel so angry. You know, they keep my money. It's my money.
Banks usually keep financial documents 7 to 10 years. After 10 years, if a product is not used, it's considered an unclaimed balance and transferred to the Bank of Canada. Lau and Griffiths' funds were not there. CTV News also reached out to the Canadian Bankers Association, which told us checks are considered stale-dated after 6 months unless it is a certified check. A stale-dated check means the item is old and not necessarily invalid. Financial institutions may still honor these items, but there is no obligation to do so. Lau says she still wants her money.
They shouldn't keep my money, and they shouldn't say, oh, your money disappeared.
Griffiths also feels he should get his funds.
That's money that my mother labored for, and I have no intentions of leaving it to the bank.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
It's big news if you have plans to visit Europe. Countries there agreed to expand the continent's border-free zone. The Schengen area includes nearly 30 European countries. Once travelers enter any of them from abroad, they're able to cross internal borders without any checks. Since 2022, Romania and Bulgaria have had their applications partially blocked as other countries cited concerns around illegal migration. But today, EU ministers agreed to drop land border checks with those nations as of next year. Government officials welcome the move, saying it'll boost security and the economy and make journeys smoother for travelers.
Coming up, a dog in Stratford goes for a stroll in the search of treats, surprising a local giant tiger. More on the pup's adventure after the break. An unusual customer who weighs nearly 150 pounds recently strolled into the giant tiger in Stratford.
And staff had to make a few calls in order to get him out of the store. But as CTV's Krista Sharp explains, all he really wanted was treats and some cuddles.
Casually using the sidewalk, this good boy waits for the front door of Stratford's giant tiger to open and then strolls right in.
Spent a few minutes walking through my ladies' department and just shopping, I guess.
Potentially looking for Christmas presents or simply taking a Sunday stroll. The 140-pound Mastiff Husky mix.
Met a customer at the cash there that had some treats in her pocket and, kind of snuggled up to her for a bit.
Quickly made friends.
As soon as we approached the pup, a pretty friendly dog, right? Just didn't look real harmful.
Despite it being a retail store, guests with actual tails aren't usually allowed. So the search for his owner began.
They checked Lewis over, found the tag on the dog, and were able to call the number, and no answer on the number, unfortunately.
His owner did quickly call back and said that because of all the snow Stratford recently received, it acted as a stepping stool allowing Lewis, the scarf-wearing dog, to jump over his backyard fence.
You know, if you watch the camera, he looks like he just walked all the way around the store and came in and just happy guy.
Now, it's unclear why the giant dog chose giant tiger.
What's funny is that, you know, by that point we had Lewis in the back room, right, just, you know, away from the customers. He was lying down on the ground letting everybody rub his belly, and she was pretty joyed that he was inside safe.
But it's definitely a day staff will positively never forget.
Quick little shopper there, just in and out, and happy story.
Krista Sharp, CTV News, Stratford.
You gotta love a dog story.
And a good dog pun. Yep.
Retail positively.
And that scarf.
Listen.
I've never seen a dog scarf like that.
Honestly, you can.
You're a dog owner.
Yes, I am.
Would you scarf it?
Absolutely. She's got a winter coat and a couple of sweaters. But it's one of those days where everybody, even your pets, need the scarf, the boots, the jacket, all those things, because it is absolutely freezing. We are below seasonal today thanks to a cold front that made its way through, and that wind is wicked when you walk out the door, prompting that lake effect snow machine to fire up. So if you live in those communities along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, all the way through to Barrie, Muskoka, Peterborough, you know what's up. It's cold, it's snowy, be careful. Right now, -6 feels like -15. As we get into the evening, it doesn't get any warmer. That wind chill gets closer to -20 into our Friday. Lots of sunshine, but no warmth, but that's okay.
All right, thank you, Jess. And that's it for us. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. Stay warm. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Dowd. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.